Hey everyone, Rob Golfi here with Remax The Golfi Team. You got to listen to this show. Would you buy a condo without a parking spot? Hello everyone, this is Rob Golfi with Remax The Golfi Team. Welcome to the Golfi Real Estate Show, Hamilton Edition with host Rick Zamperin.
Good morning, and good morning to Rob Golfi and everyone at the Golfi Team and everyone here listening to 900 CHML. If you want to get your home sold in what is soon to be an ever-changing market once again, it has been interesting over the last number of weeks and months, and more change is on the way. I guess if there's one constant in real estate, especially over the last 12, 14, 28 months, it's that there's a lot of change. But if you want a plan that works for you, a full marketing team that has worked for thousands of people over the last number of years, you got to call the number one RE/MAX team in Canada. That is the Golfi Team. 905-575-7700 is the phone number. Again, 905-575-7700. Online at robgolfi.com. That's robgolfi.com. And have a look at their social media accounts, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X. They're all over with some great content each and every day. We have some pretty good topics to get to. Before we get to some of the hot topics of the day, how is the first few weeks or few days of January looking?
It's, you know what, it's looking exactly almost like it did last year. So last year in the first 10 days, there was 81 homes sold in the Hamilton surrounding areas. And this year, so in average days on market, now these are homes that are carrying over and they're starting to sell. But it shows the average days on market for the homes that are selling are 54 days. Last year, it was 39 days. So it's a little longer, but it's because we had a tough fourth quarter. And part of the third quarter, a really tough one, and like the market almost went dormant in last year in the fourth quarter. It just it was perfect for buyers, not good for sellers last year. So now they're starting to sell. A lot of price reductions are being done, and you're going to see a lot of those homes that were kind of sitting around at 200 days on the market, 150 days on the market. They're going to start coming back up or getting price reductions done. And there's still time to actually pick up some good deals out there if you're a buyer, but that will change, and that's going to change like a blink, and people should be aware of that because they're going to change the interest rates this year, and then you're going to find that everybody's going to be jumping off the fence and actually start looking and putting offers in. Now, you can actually buy something now and close on it in 3-4 months, and then probably catch the wave where they probably start doing the interest price reductions. Hopefully they do that. But yeah, it's looking the same. So my theory is we're probably going to have the same first quarter of this year versus last year. Last year, the first 6 months were pretty good in the first half of the year, but the second half of the year was terrible. It was not as good. I think we'll have a good first half, but also we're going to have a good second half of this year, just because things are going to start turning around and things are going to get better with the market. Hopefully, with the government changing interest rates and everything like that.
So, would this year, with that scenario, would this year be more comparable to 2021, or is 2021 just one of those outliers that it's probably never going to happen for a long, long time?
2021 was an anomaly, and to tell you the truth, we had record numbers in 2021, and but the average sale price in 2021, or let's say benchmark price, is the same as the benchmark price in 2023. We won't see 2021 for quite a few years from now. It'll be now we're on the bench. Now things are going to start moving slowly and surely. This is the market the way it is. And now we're just going to climb slowly every year after that, just as a normal market. Now the thing is, with the interest rates coming down, it is going to move along. Now, every decade, everything is different. Because of COVID, not just because of COVID, but we have so many different things that are happening in the market in the last 4 years than we did in previous decades. I mean, we never had immigration issues. We never had interest rates like in the 90s were like 12, 13%. In the 80s, they were like 19%, 20%. But but we didn't have a shortage of homes anytime in the past till now. Like, and it is a crisis. So we're gonna find that, and it's gonna be different. Like you can predict a little bit, you can get a hunch of what's gonna happen in the market to a certain degree, and I do feel the last quarter of 2023 was almost similar to the last quarter of 2022. So, and I do feel that the first quarter of 2024 is going to be similar to the 2023. So things will pick up, and I know that because I was looking at my numbers on the board, and I have the past 3 years in front of my face all the time. It's on the wall right in front of my office. I look at it, and I gauge. I judge the see what the market was like in the different years. So now I'll be erasing the 2021 numbers, and now have 2022 and 23 up there, and then 24 will start. But I do feel that that things are gonna move along pretty good this year. But now, like I said, you got good time. There's a time right now that you can still make some good deals before it changes, and it's going to change fast.
So is the projection that 2024 will be, I guess, a more traditional kind of selling market? Maybe not in terms of price fluctuation, because that's a whole different story, but in terms of homes selling, is this going to be more of a traditional kind of looking year?
Absolutely. It'll be more of a traditional year. It's going to, the buyers will have a little more breathing room, and it's not going to go into heavy competition, but there will be some multiple offers on certain properties, depending on how they price it. So, for instance, I have one in Hamilton that I'm looking at unloading because I'm doing major renovations on 2 commercial properties, and I listed it at 500, and I thought I would get it towards the end. It was the last quarter of last year, and I didn't get much showings on it or anything. Now, I did look at other properties that did sell during the time that I had mine for sale, and they listed it at 450, 460, and they were getting multiple offers. So I will be putting that house up for sale probably at 450. Not holding offers, though. I'm not holding it, but they did get multiple offers, and I'm hoping that the same thing will happen. The house is definitely worth 475, and it is worth 475. And I don't doubt I'll get that. But I was reaching for the stars when I was listing it at 500 last year, especially when the market was dormant. So I'm waiting. I was going to put it on the market this week, but I'm going to wait till next week to do it, and then and hopefully it turns out pretty good.
All indications are that interest rates are going to be cut by the Bank of Canada, and maybe as early as April, which I think, from a consumer standpoint, is good news, right? We like to spend our money. We don't like to spend it on debt or debt repayment or debt management. And so if interest rates come down, that means in large part mortgage rates are going to come down. Will we stay in a balanced market, or, come the spring, or maybe more importantly, the summer and the fall, when those rates are a little bit lower, will we have a buyer's or a seller's market, or do you expect balance throughout 2024?
I think because there's so many people sitting on the fence waiting, I think you're going to see a bit of a rush of buyers coming into the market. Now, the one thing is, if you're closing on a deal and you got a mortgage, me personally, now you got to talk to a mortgage broker and see what they say. But I would just go on a variable rate, which is pretty high. I mean, variable, like I have one of my properties that the mortgage on it is $1,000. Now, because the renewal is coming up and it's going to be $1,300. There's a $300 difference on the mortgage on this property, and so I'm going to do the variable, and then when the interest rates do come down, I'm going to lock in. So if you're buying a house and you're closing on it, don't lock in a 5-year rate right now. I wouldn't do that. I would just try to pay the little bit of the higher rate if your bank will allow you to, because of the fact of what your income is going to be. Pay the higher rate, and then in 6 months, there's a high probability that you can probably save the $200 a month off your mortgage. So I would do that. Like, don't lock in on a 5-year rate right now. Like 1 year open or whatever, but do not lock in my opinion. This is my opinion. Some people may argue against me, but I think most people will agree, especially mortgage brokers. Do not lock in for a long time.
Also, TD Economics is calling 2024 the year of the cut here in this country. Right now, we're at a 22-year high of 5%, as we all know. And the expectation, as I said earlier, is that the Bank of Canada will cut its key lending rate, and maybe a few times in 2024. And there are some projections it could be as low as 3.5% by the end of the year. Do you expect the end of this year then to be much busier than the start of this year?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this is going to be a good year for real estate. I do think the market will increase in benchmark price, not heavily, but it will. But I do feel that with the interest rates coming down at 3.5, that was fantastic. Like I said, don't lock in, and but it will be a good second half year for sure. And I'm betting on that.
So if you're a seller, or at least you're thinking about selling right now, the fall might be a pretty good time to do it.
You know, it is a pretty good time to do it because you're going to see a lot of buyers coming in, but you're going to see that happening in a very short period coming up, like February, March. And I think, you know, and I was on a podcast with a mortgage broker and a broker that owns several RE/MAX offices, Conrad Zerini. And we were all doing our predictions. And I said, we're going to have three rate cuts at a quarter point each one. Conrad predicted three half point rate cuts, and then the mortgage broker is like, you guys are both right. It's hard to gauge, but there will be probably I'd say at least a half a point to a point that will come down this year for sure. But when are they going to start? We don't know.
Have there been a lot or some, or maybe none at all, about home buyers walking away from their deposits? Because as we know, especially from a pre-sale or new home construction lens, it could have been years ago that they made their deposits, and now the price of those units or those homes are much higher because of, where interest rates are. Rob, are you noticing, or are you hearing some potential buyers saying, you know what, I got to walk away?
So, you know what? I don't think it is probably happening, but not as big as it is in Toronto. So I do feel that in the Hamilton, Halton, Niagara market, it's a little more affordable, that the people aren't walking away as much. They're trying to sell. They know they got a possession happening, and they're like, "Well, I don't know if I can close on this deal because the interest rates the way they are, and the banks sometimes aren't giving them the mortgage because the value is not even near what they paid for it." So there's a lot of that happening, but I don't feel it's as bad as it is in Toronto that people are walking away from their from their down payments. Like sometimes people locked in at $1.5 million and put $200,000 down, and maybe the property is only worth $1.1 million. So they're looking at it and say, well, you know what? If I take possession, I'm losing money, so I might as well just lose the $200,000 if they can afford to. If you know what I mean. But it's. I don't know the Toronto market, if there a lot of them. I know the one agent on the article was saying that he's seeing it's happening quite a bit, but I don't see it heavily here in Hamilton or Niagara.
Because it is happening in places like Toronto, and I'm sure that it's not alone in this regard. Is there any chatter from a government standpoint to maybe tweak the rules a little bit when it comes to deposits, or is that a no-go zone?
Well, I get it because there's one case here. This guy, he was an immigrant, saved his money. He's been here since 2016, had $81,000 or something like that dollars to put as a down payment. And basically he was supposed to get money from his father. They were going to sell the property or mortgage the property in India to help him get the mortgage with this house in Toronto or wherever it is. And the builder, the developer, is not giving him an extension. and is not really helping him out. Like, he's basically taking the property back. He's not even allowing him to assign it because he's got somebody that wants to buy it to salvage it. I feel sorry for this guy because this guy saved, worked probably so hard saving for the $81,000. Now the developer is going to take it and he's going to resell that house, and this guy's left to be, hung, and he's actually thinking of going back to India and saying, you know what, I worked so hard in this country trying to get this, and then I had it all taken away from me. I do feel that is happening, and developers, they're not allowing people to assign just because of the fact they're in competition in their own condo building of selling other ones that they haven't sold yet. So they say, well, there's no way we want to take a buyer away from us. So either they have to repossess or whatever. But yeah, a lot of things, like, I think more so in the bigger cities than they are in the Hamilton and Niagara and even Burlington. Burlington is pretty expensive, but I don't hear it as much there.
This could, and I'm just guessing here, spitballing here, this could maybe lead to some changes from the developer standpoint, right? These developers are building these new builds, whether it's condos or whatever the case is, and they're seeing in cases like this in Toronto and Vancouver that, potential buyers are stepping away from their deposits, and now they're having to look to other people to, buy these places. That it might come down to the developers to maybe offer incentives to potential buyers so they're not scared away by these high prices or higher interest rates.
Absolutely. These contracts are all one-sided. So if you're buying a condo pre-construction, you better read the fine print on that contract, because there's a lot of stipulations in there that you can't do, and you think at the moment it's not going to happen to you, but then all of a sudden that little clause should have been taken out. Now what's happening is, if you go to a development site right now and you say, hey, listen, I want the right to reassign without any penalties, without that, developers are saying, okay, no problem, because they're having a hard time selling themselves. They just want somebody to sign on the dotted line and get a sale done. And then they'll worry about whether that guy can close or not down the road. But they are, you've got power to negotiate whatever is on that contract right now when you go to a new pre-construction site or anything like that. But it's tough. Definitely, I think there'll be laws changed, and I think they have changed some laws in regards to a cooling off period in some areas of the country, like where you sign a contract. You can actually walk away from it within, I think, 3 or 4 days if it's not right, or you just, maybe you bought on impulse and now you can cool off on that.
And we kind of heard stories, and I think we talked about this on the show, several months ago, that some developers are offering things like, the first 3 months free, a free cable or TV package. Like, there are some that are getting really creative.
Absolutely, because they need to sell them, and because they have some left. Maybe they were building, they got the approval to build, start digging, but they still probably have 20% of the building left, or maybe or they're ready to go, and now they've got they don't want to go backwards 3 steps, so they're offering so many incentives for people to jump in and buy one, but people are still cautious. The investors are cautious. Now, you understand, when a condo building goes up, these buildings are going up because investors are buying them. It's not the consumer. The consumers end up buying them as resales, but the consumers do buy them, but not at the level that the investors do. If we didn't have any investors buying any of these pre-constructions, it'd be so slow. These buildings would take forever to go up because it just takes time. So you've got to understand that now what they'll do is they're going to offer incentives even for the investors, but their investors are more cautious than anything right now, because when they buy 2, 3, 4 at a time. With the interest rates, not even the rent will cover what they're buying for. So they're kind of like sitting back and waiting to see what's going to happen.
That's a good point. Don't forget, you can listen to our show online through Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Stitcher, and many more. Just search for The Golfi Real Estate Show in your favorite podcast platform and hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. And if you're wanting to buy or sell a home, you got to contact the #1 RE/MAX team in Canada, The Golfi Team, 905-575-7700. online at robgolfi.com. That's Rob, Golfi.com. I want to talk about parking in Toronto. There are some parking headaches that we encounter here in Hamilton or maybe in downtown Burlington from time to time. Nothing like the headaches that they experience in Toronto. Not only the headaches, but if you have a parking spot, it is a treasure chest, because there are some parking spots in Toronto that sell for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. There are some upwards of $100,000 or $150,000 for one parking space. Rob, this is nuts.
It is, and it's going to happen here. It's excuse me, but they're building buildings right now downtown Hamilton, condos, and I'd say maybe a third of those condos that they're building does not include a parking spot, or maybe more. And now in Toronto, you can get away without having a parking spot because a lot, they got transit, everything's downtown. Like, it's just at, a metropolitan area, just huge. Everything's at down the elevator, and you got every shopping of any sort on the main level or in the lobby. Now in Hamilton, we don't have that. So can you imagine you buy, like, there's a building going up right now. Anything I think it's under 600,000 does not include a parking spot. So, well, like, where are you going to park? Like, now you're going to have to race around, find parking on the street, or are you going to buy that? Because me personally, I wouldn't buy that because I have a car, right? And let's say if I have a partner, we have two cars. Where are we going to park? We're going to scramble around looking for two parking spots around the neighborhood. And now you got other people doing the same thing. And now you're going to, you've got this parking issue going on. And the problem here is the cost to go deeper on parking on a building is very expensive. So that's why sometimes they go so many levels down, and then you'll see the first two levels above ground or three levels with parking. And still that's not enough. And just because of the cost. And then now what they're offering or not offering is you're not going to get parking for condos that are priced at under a certain price range. So they're going to have a harder time selling those. Eventually, they will sell them. An investor may buy it because he's not the one that's driving there and living there, and he's hoping he finds somebody that doesn't have a car, doesn't need a car, and lives downtown and can just commute that way. But I think it's just different here in the Hamilton area. If I think you need a car, even downtown Hamilton, regardless of the metropolitan area. Look what's happening on King William there. Beautiful. They're doing what's his last name? Kakowski did a beautiful job buying those buildings and renovating and turning it like restaurant alley. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But that parking spot at the corner of James and King William, that parking spot is jammed full. If you want to go for lunch there, you either have to walk there, and if you're too far to walk there, you better be there just before noon, because I'll tell you, you're not going to get a parking spot in that parking spot, and that eventually will end up being a condo probably on that corner, and then what's going to happen to all the parking spots? There's not going to be any parking. Those restaurants will hurt. And I mean, yes, there's a lot of buildings going up. A lot of people are going to live down there, but it's just going to be those people are going to be able to walk there and go to those restaurants. All the rest of us that drive, we're going to be scrambling, driving around looking for a parking spot just to go to one of those nice restaurants on King William. Yeah,
I can envision. I'm not sure if I'm able to or allowed to call dibs on this idea, and I'm sure other people are kind of thinking about this. Is to in somewhere in downtown Hamilton or Toronto, or you pick a spot, or you build some kind of parking garage, but it's almost like a valet service where you park your car and then we shuttle you to wherever you need to go, and then we pick you up and bring you back to your car. So then you don't have to pay for parking. You're still paying for the service, but it might be one central location to park all your vehicles.
I think it's a great idea.
There you go. You can run with that idea, Rob.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. A friend of mine was good friends with the owner of the Radius restaurant, and he kept saying, "Do valet there, do valet." And you know how all that parking there that used to be across the street from Radius there, it's all filled with condos. But he said he was telling the owner, "Do valet." And people pull in, you have a guy there that takes the car, parks it someplace around the corner or whatever, and then just keeps going back and forth like that. And he's right. You almost need that parking garage, that valet, in order to to get the business. And I think that might be a great idea. You gotta. I think you should get maybe patent that, but. I think it's a great, Rick. I think it's a great idea. They do need a parking garage that people can just go there and then get driven to the spot they want to go to.
I can't imagine spending $100,000 or $150,000 on a parking spot. Like, that's nuts. And if your prediction holds true, and that kind of comes to Hamilton, maybe not to that degree in terms of the price tag. Who knows? It might be $15,000, $20,000, top level here in Hamilton, but that might dissuade people from buying that condo or moving to the downtown because they don't want to deal with the parking situation. I'm sure it's already happening in Toronto.
Absolutely. When I was looking at this one condo building and it was beautiful, gorgeous, everything looks great. And I said, does parking come with it? And they said, no, you have to spend, only these condos, the higher price condos get it. And I'm like, I had such a frown on my face. I go, what? I go, okay, well, all of a sudden, the interest was there, and then it dropped as soon as that parking, those units didn't have parking. And I'm sure they're going through a lot of that. And the salespeople that were working at this place, they're like, how do you can't overcome this? They got to find people that will buy this and don't need the parking, underground parking with the condos. So it's gonna be a battle for them to get that building sold 100%. It'll take a few years.
And I guess from a development standpoint, like, the developer doesn't really make a lot of money by adding more parking spots, right?
It costs them more money.
Unless they're building that cost into the cost of the unit. But then, I mean, now you're really moving a big segment of the potential buying market because they can't afford it.
Absolutely. I was just talking to a developer. He said going deeper down underground is way too expensive. And that's why you'll see condos, they'll have parking above ground. You'll see 3 levels up and 3 levels down. And still it's not enough.
Over in Brampton, they have what is called a residential rental listing pilot program. It began earlier this year, New Year's Day, to be exact. And it is basically stating that those who own or operate a property containing between 1 and 4 rental units are required to obtain a license. And this landlord licensing program is designed to crack down on illegal rentals. I'm not sure if this is going to work. It's nice to see that at least they're trying something in terms of, weeding out the bad actors in this segment. What do you think about this?
I don't think people are going to register, and I think if they do that, they're going to eliminate a lot of in-laws or apartments that, yes, they may be illegal, but we need them because we got a shortage of rental properties out there right now. So I think it's just a cash grab. It's just like when you had to register your pet. Like, I don't even know if my pet's registered, and I've got a little dog. He's 15 years old. If the police or the dog police came knocking on my door, he's deaf anyway. He's not going to be able to bark, so they won't know I have a dog. So he's on his way out. So I mean, I don't know if my wife did register our dog or not, and I'm sure there's a lot of dogs not registered. I mean, he does have a what do you call it, a chip on his back of his neck there, in case we lose him. But I why they can't keep taxing us. And if they keep doing that, like, you have to register a bike, you have to register, your lawnmower, you have to register. It's becoming ridiculous. And them doing this, they're hurting the rental market. People need a place to live. Yes, maybe some of these places are illegal. Maybe they are illegal, but the problem is, yes, they need bigger windows in case there's a fire and they need to escape out a window. There's a lot of those that are illegal like that, but get them to fix that. But you have to pay $300 a year to have a registered apartment in your house or whatever. Like, that cuts in. Like, we're already paying enough interest. The high prices of homes are high. Why just add to it? It's just too much. And I don't know. I just think if they bring this in, I don't know. It's just it doesn't stop. They just keep taxing everything.
Yeah, and then the only thing I'm in favor of is that it's a pilot program, so they're really going to figure out whether this is going to work or not. But I'm in agreement with you. I mean, we have a housing crisis, we have a rental crisis, we have people living in tents outside. They need a place to stay. Here are, you would think, the majority are going to be, law-abiding, rule-following citizens who aren't going to have those unsafe rental spaces. Maybe it's a basement, maybe it's a spare bedroom in the basement, whatever the case is. At least those homeowners are doing something to help this crisis. And now you're asking them to register and pay for a license. It seems backwards.
It does. It just and can you imagine if you apply for the license? Hey, sorry, you can't have that apartment because it doesn't have big enough windows in the basement. You're gonna have to eliminate. So I bet you 30% of the apartments out there would be gone. They have to eliminate that. So you're right. Where are those people going to go? And you're right. There's a lot of homeless people out there, and that maybe one bedroom in the basement, or maybe that one little, apartment that's not even an apartment. It's just kind of like you got a microwave and fridge and a bathroom and that's it downstairs. That you might eliminate that for that person. The next step for that person could be a tent. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, and I think they should just scrap it now, especially with the crisis that we're going with in the housing crisis that we have now.
Yeah, if anything, what this city should have done. And again, if we're talking about the city of Brampton, maybe just have a website where you can register if they really wanted to nail down on who's doing what. Have a website, you register your rental unit, but you don't have to pay a fee. I think that's really going to, push a lot of people away to say, no, I'm not going to bother doing that. I mean, I'll be really surprised to see the number of those who, enter this program to say, yep, I'll pay the $300 per year just to, register my rental space. It's very odd.
I wouldn't. Why? I'll wait for them to knock on my door. Hey, you've got an apartment there? Yeah, I do. Well, you're gonna have to pay $300. Well, maybe that might come in 5 years by the time they catch up to me. So I saved myself. Who knows, $1,500, and so I'll wait till they knock on my door. But I just think it's terrible.
Well, and even worse, in that same scenario, they knock on your door. Do you have a basement apartment? Yeah, sure I do. Okay, well, you're now going to have to pay $300 a month. And you're saying, well, no. And the alternative is no, and I'm going to have to kick my tenant out. Where's that person going to go? And, there's the pickle that we're in that a lot of people are actually facing. So here in Hamilton, at least at this point, proposed property tax for 2024 is upwards of 14%. Now, I had Mayor Andrea Horvath on my show on 900 CHML a few weeks ago, and she promised that the property tax hike here in Hamilton would be nowhere near 14% and not higher than that. That is for sure. Which is good news, but what the final number is, we're waiting to see. Over in Toronto, the proposed property tax hike there is 10.5%. Now, earlier in the show, Rob, we were just talking about parking spots in Toronto being $150,000. If you added a 10.5% property tax, and again, it could be lower than that, or again, it could be higher than that, that is really going to have a huge impact on everything in Toronto, especially housing.
Oh, for sure. People are struggling as it is right now. And I was just at a client's house, just this past week, and they are paying their bills. Okay, this month they're paying their hydro bill. But guess what? Next month they're not paying the hydro bill. They're going to pay the gas bill. They are juggling their bills. And I feel sorry for these people. They are working day and night just to keep up with the bills. And you don't think that's going to happen? Now, the city of Toronto and Hamilton and everywhere else, I mean, they'll allow you grace period before they knock on your door and say, hey, you better pay the bill, or otherwise we are going to repossess. And they'll probably let you go 2 years without paying because they're hoping that you have enough equity there or whatever, but because they know people are struggling. Them increasing 10% is going to be tough. I think they're saying 10%, but it's probably going to be maybe 5 or 6%. They just want to give a high number. Then when the real number comes out, it's not as bad. And Windsor just said they're doing, I think, 4.5% increase on their taxes, which is still it is a lot. Like I'll tell you, everything is getting expensive. House insurance. I can't believe how many people out there don't even have house insurance. I mean, they own their house, And some of them own it outright cash. Some of them don't even have they have a mortgage on it. Their mortgage company probably doesn't even know they don't have insurance on it. Insurance company is supposed to notify their mortgage company. There is people out there that can't afford to pay their bills or anything, or put food on the table, and they're going to increase it. It's going to be a tough year if they do increase it 10%. It's going to be tough, and it's hard out there right now.
Well, not only is it going to be tough this year, but I mean, what happens next year and the year after that? I don't envision, our property taxes going down. There's not going to be a cut. Like, this is going to be compounded year after year after year. And it is, as you said, going to be absolutely tough. That's going to be excruciatingly painful for a lot of people, especially who purchased their homes over the last, 2-3 years with prices so high. Now add, 10% here, another 5% the next year, maybe, a bigger increase the following year. That's going to be dicey for a lot of people.
It is. And then you're going to find people, just like, getting a rental unit, maybe maybe they have a corner in their basement that somebody's willing to rent just a room just to live there. And you're going to find a lot of that going on. You're going to, just for instance, just a quick before we're almost finished. Remember I mentioned that one of my houses, the tenant fell asleep and he had a grease fire going on. I didn't know this. He had somebody living in the basement. It's an unfinished basement, but they had a makeshift bed and everything. So when I went there after the fire was done on this, I'm like, well, what's going on down here? I saw a little bed and, just kind of little makeshift little area and I'm like, holy smokes. They were renting a partial of the basement that I didn't know. I was renting the house out. So I guess just to afford to rent. But you're going to find a lot of that going on. People are going to, just bring in somebody to live in there, a stranger living in the house with you, just so they can afford it. And then, it just causes a lot of problems, and it's not good. I get it. You know what the city has to do? They just got to learn how to run a city the right way without overspending. And that's the problem. There's too much spending going on. They're not managing the budget too much, or not managing the money. And they just, every year, they just keep saying, okay, we got to tax this. We got to tax this. We're going to put tolls here. We're going to do this. It's got to stop.
Yeah, I think if we're not already there, we're very close to that breaking point. And it does have to, the level of mismanagement or government waste, or just waste in general, doesn't have to be government related. I mean, we're all kind of paying a price to that event. Don't forget, if you want to sell your house or you are in the market to buy a home, you got to call the number one RE/MAX team in Canada, the Golfi Team, 905-575-7700. Again, 905-575-7700. Online at robgolfi.com. That's Rob, GOLFI.com. Thank you for listening to the Golfi Real Estate Show, Hamilton Edition. We're back next Saturday at 9 on 900 CHML.